You won't like to hear this, but it's important that you do. Modern culture wars have sadly seeped into all segments of the media, and it's becoming harder to even keep children away from it. I think what Rob Schneider just revealed to Tucker Carlson about his shadow banning from late night television is a sad reminder of how far media giants are willing to go to do that. But there's one star example of America's political comedy, which Rob mentioned, that I believe deserves a deeper look. So subscribe to the channel for more discussions like this, and let's dive into it.
I've been just for hate speech, for jokes.
And you're not allowed on late night TV either.
I don't get invited to places.
Do you care?
No, why would I? I mean, like, it's not, I mean, as I said, it got on Twitter and then Fox News, of course, which I said, much of late night TV is just political indoctrination with comedic imposition.
Yeah.
It's just, and it no longer resembles comedy as much as, cheering on the rhetoric and, attacking a particular it's one half of the country. And, when I saw the dancing syringes, I was like, oof.
But all those, that's the weird thing is all those guys, I assume, because you've lived in that world.
I know most of them, but it's easy to, and God bless them. And I hope that they can come around to become more independent in their thinking, because you can literally replace the dialogue, the jokes from one late night guy to the next guy, and then put them in the mouth of this guy. And it's just there's no individual point of view, because it is really ideologically captured and trapped. And I hope that they would realize that that's limiting. I would hope that you realize,
limiting, soul destroying.
You know what I think? Ever since Rob Schneider got his comedy skit cut short in Canada, we haven't seen him on mainstream television like we used to. And it's a really intriguing case study into how a star comedian of his stature can become relegated to the online world simply for his more conservative-leaning political comedy. Interestingly, on Saturday Night Live in the 90s, he was in a place where political humor, sketches, impersonations, and jokes found a home, and that's what made it such an enigma on mainstream television. It's not a coincidence that as the broader culture gets enveloped by a far-left strand of political correctness, comedy's the first to suffer, and Schneider in recent years seems to have joined a long list of comedians that have been canceled by the mainstream, and yet found even bigger audiences in alternative and online media. That list includes people like Ricky Gervais, Bill Burr, Dave Chappelle, and now perhaps Rob as well. And that's a sad reflection on the state of comedy as a whole, because humor is nothing if it doesn't provoke comedy that has to tiptoe around the changing societal sensitivities, becoming stale and boring until people eventually start to become enamored by characters that break the spell without apology and carve their own identity. Seems like that's what Rob Schneider has decided to become, and I think it's going to serve him well in the long run.
Disney also is another organization that caught up in what sounds good, social justice, the equity. Whoa, equity. Yeah, well, whatever it is, equity. But what equity is a grievance. It's people like, I want this, and the idea that somehow we're going to get the same outcomes and that they're guaranteed. It was like Kamala Harris's dog whistle now is this equity thing. And if we don't have, as Thomas Sowell says, if we don't have the same outcomes in the same family, how are we going to have that in society? We have to have a meritocracy. We have to have the best people, and we have to have some sanity. So, but Disney, no, they're not going to make that movie. And I hope that they do well. It's a company that I worked for many, many years ago. It's a best brand in show business.
Honestly, I think it's a bit naive to think that the only reason Disney is pivoting to the far left as a response to the modern culture wars, that's because when you pull the curtain, there's something more sinister at work. Disney is one of those big names in the media that have signed up for the so-called ESG movement, and this is tying their financial being into their social and cultural being. And that too for a certain strand of the culture, one that pushes DEI policies and pits itself solidly on one side of the political aisle against the other. And it's not like no one's noticing it, because Disney's long list of recent flops has created a massive dent in their business that inevitably is going to be hard to recover from until the company corrects course. It's only for so long that people can be fed bad political takes, shoving partisan social ideas in their face, until they just switch off and move to something else. And I love what Rob Schneider said about equity as a value, because it takes grit to say that about one of the most cherished and championed values of modern culture. It's that there's really nothing intrinsically virtuous about equity and nothing intrinsically evil about inequity. In the pursuit of something grand, there will always be inequity between people that can attain it, and any solution that people in the past have tried to create has only ended up pulling down the people successful in that pursuit rather than pulling up those from struggling. Unfortunately, it seems like when your priority is the latter, even a brand like Disney can be tainted with political and social themes, and that then tried to saddle on children. Rob Schneider's own experience of that with children's movies and TV shows these days presents a bleak picture of that today.
I hope Disney comes around. They see what happens when they get too woke. They get spanked.
Yeah.
They get spanked, and they that's a company that I got to root for, and I got to hope that they right the ship. And money has a strange way. That's the thing about America. People come from all over, in America, whatever their belief system. America has a wonderful seductiveness about working your butt off. You get successful, making money, and so we've had a wonderful check and balance here. Usually, with what makes the most money, let's keep doing that.
Yes.
So I would hope that Disney rights its ship and gets away from this trying to indoctrinize our children. How awful is that?
Depressing.
It was really bummer that the fact that my wife and I would have to watch the movies first before we let our kids. The last few years, we have to watch the movie first before we let our kids see it. Let's just check it first. Then my parents never did that to me. They took me to see The Godfather, Sonny Corleone. They didn't ask me, how did you deal with that? They didn't want to get a babysitter. So we would watch these movies just to make sure. Well, my wife would, she does most 90% of the child rearing, and to make sure that they're not getting any stuff that we don't want them to have.
I think what they failed to catch up to is that they no longer live in a vacuum. Every single move they make in the culture wars and every time they try to make children a vehicle for it is another time that they shoot their own foot. They may hobble along financially for some time, but the lost trust and credibility among the general public is going to take a lot of time and effort to get back. They may even be impossible for the audience finally fades them out of their memory with the massive amount of alternatives now available. That's partly why Rob Schneider is still around after being canceled, and it's why a name like Disney will lose its monopoly on content and narratives in the years to come. But let me know in the comments if you agree, because perhaps it's impossible to fool audiences for too long.